Last month, The Legend of the Bone Sword RPG turned 9 years old. And for this whole time, we've just been using music that we didn't even make ourselves.
It's all Monster
Cat. It's
always Monster Cat.
But now that we're revamping absolutely everything from scratch, I thought, you know what? Why don't I just make some music for this game? For the past couple years, I've been experimenting with making music for other people's games, doing commissions and all that, so I think I'm finally ready to give this a solid shot. In the very beginning stages of the revamp, I was a little bit overwhelmed by how many songs I would have to make if I was going to make a song for every single area. So I tried to improvise every song, which would be a lot quicker. I wouldn't have to really write anything, I would just play something and record it. And for a while, it actually kind of worked. But over time, as the revamp progressed and started to grow a lot larger as a project, it became apparent that we would need a bit more effort in the music. Also, I wasn't a very good improviser. I'm not the best piano player in the world. So, I'll call these the beta songs. These were all eventually cut, except for the desert theme. That is the only beta song that remains. So now I was kind of stuck in a hard spot. I had to make a ton of music, and now I even wanted to do a boss theme for every boss? This is a lot of work. And now that I've cut all the music, I didn't even know what kind of music I was going to make. So I guess it's back to the drawing board. Where do I start now? Well, I guess let's start with something easy. When you join the game, the first thing you see is a slot select screen, sort of a title screen. You get to pick which save slot you're going to use, and it's just a nice little moment. Let's do a theme song for this screen. The first song that every player will hear, this song will establish the musical style and identity of this entire game. I really like this whole visual sequence that I made up here, so I wanted to try and match this cloudy, uncertain feeling with an ambient song. So I loaded up my favorite free by the way, Spitfire Labs VST, and started playing around with some chords to see what I can get. Eventually I landed on this push and pull kind of swelling ambient sound. It's sort of synthy, but it's very dramatic. This wavy motion represents the cloudy atmosphere we're in right now. And then partway through the song, a steel pan begins playing. This pan, to me, represents the player, wandering around in this atmosphere. The motion of the melody moves up and down, back and forth, not sure where it's going. These notes sit on a pentatonic scale. They don't feel emotionally one way or the other, not happy or sad, somewhere in between. All of this matches that feeling of uncertainty I'm trying to go for here. And I didn't know it yet, but this melody would later become very important to this soundtrack. The next song I decided to make was for the spawn area. This place is now called the Old Sanctuary. In the original beta songs, this place was very depressing. It was a piano solo entirely in the minor scale, and it just didn't feel right. I had to cut the whole song because I didn't want the beginning of the game to be a downer. So this time around, I wanted it to feel more adventurous, the beginning of your adventure. The song starts with this slow, low, trudging cello, churning along with some other orchestral instruments, almost like a march. Then the vibraphone and the strings come in to help lighten up the atmosphere a bit. I wanted this place to feel like a lively town in the midst of a horrible place taken over by something dark. The deep cellos represent that dark, and the rest of this lively orchestra represents the people who live here. And for the next section, I wanted it to be very uplifting and adventurous. This is supposed to represent the player fighting back. And it does that, but it's just not, it doesn't fit, it doesn't feel right. And I had this problem for a long time. I didn't know how to continue this song. I knew the intro section and the end section, they're kind of the same, but this middle section, something's not right here. I didn't know what to do. I was stuck on this part for over a year. So for now, I kind of just sat there and scratched my head and tossed this song aside. So I decided to move on to the next area's theme. The next area was the desert, and I kind of liked that song, so I just kept the old one. After that is the ice area. This place is called Cold Quartz. For this song, I actually had some inspiration. So back in 2016, I used to play this game I talk about way too much, Azure Mines, on Xbox. You just mine around for a while, whatever, look for ores, get stuff, upgrade your base, typical tycoon type of game. But to me, something always stood out above everything else. If you mined down not too far, but just far enough, a certain song would start to play. This song was called Ice Cavern. Every time I would get to this part of the game, I would stop and listen. But this song just hit me in a different way. I couldn't pinpoint what it was. Maybe it was just that it triggered some Mass Effect nostalgia from when I was a kid. You know, that song, Uncharted Worlds, everyone uses it in video essays or whatever. Kinda sounded similar to that, but there was still something musically going on here that was just so interesting to me. I wanted to use that feeling in a new way. So I began to study this song. And eventually I found out, yeah, this is just a preset for GarageBand. But it doesn't matter, it's still really cool, and I want to find out what makes it tick. So I learned how to play it on piano. And what stood out to me was the bass notes of the melody. The first bass note of the phrase is in a different key than the rest of the phrase. It's almost like a fake key that immediately changes to trick your ear. This is exactly what I was looking for. This is what I wanted to do in my song. So I got to work. I ran through a bunch of presets I had, trying to find anything that sounded like this strange synth. And eventually I found something that sounded pretty cool. I started playing some melodies and applied directly what I learned. I played the first note in a different key than the rest of the melody. That key change is the heart of this feeling that this song has. And pretty soon, I had something going that I was happy with. This melody loops throughout the entire Cold Quartz Ice Area theme. Side note, I believe this is a 6/4 melody. I could be wrong. I'm not very good with time signatures. I haven't spent much time learning all that. Whatever it is, it led to a really cool drum pattern later on in the song. For these drums, I just played like what felt like would fit. And ironically, the drum pattern I came up with didn't fit the time signature. So at the very end of this loop, I put in a drum fill that ties everything together nicely. So I ended up with this crazy drum pattern on top of this weird looping melody, And it all comes together in this strange, cool feeling that kind of is reminiscent of that original Ice Cavern song. So that's pretty neat, huh? Well, there's more. Little did I know, somehow, some magical coincidence, this is insane that this happened. The synth I used for the main melody of this song, the synth that loops throughout the whole thing, has a built-in delay to it. In the background, there is another melody going on that I didn't even realize was happening. It sounds like howling. Can you hear it? This blew my mind when I figured this out. That howling that is playing from whatever notes I'm playing in this song just happens to be the same melody that the steel pan used in the title theme. I don't know how I figured this out. I don't know how this happened. But when I did notice this, everything clicked for this whole soundtrack, and the direction I would take to make this music would change forever, and for every song I would make in the future. Because I realized if I take a melody I've already made for something else and recontextualize it in a new song, which has been done by many other people, I can make the soundtrack cohesive and I don't have to come up with new stuff every time I make a song. This concept is called a motif, which just means a melody. But when that melody is tied to some kind of meaning, some place or thing, some person, that is called a leitmotif. And in this case, that melody that plays in the background is a leitmotif because it refers back to the title screen. And in turn, that melody refers to the game as a whole, because now this melody identifies this game. And now I had that missing piece of the puzzle I needed. I went back to the old Sanctuary theme, the spawn theme of the whole game, and tried using that melody to continue the song. And it was like magic. It began to write itself. Finally, after a year and some change, that song was complete. The musical identity of this game was solidified, and now I had a secret weapon to write the rest of this game's soundtrack. And that's exactly what I did. If you enjoyed this change of pace, looking at the music and all this behind the scenes stuff, let me know. It's different from the usual devlogs where we do like scripting and whatever. I hope this was a fun watch. I'll see you another time. Bye bye.